join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream. My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I believe that Martin Luther King Jr. Was a great man, indeed. And, you know, it's interesting. It's Bob Croddy, I'm back. It's interesting, years ago, I'm talking 20 years ago, I used to listen to this speech all the time with amazement, with encouragement, with love and compassion towards other people who may not look like me. And I want to come today just to talk to hopefully an African-American population. That's who I'm wanting to reach out to. You know, I grew up in Indianapolis East Side, and across from I-70 was the African-American families, and then everyone south was the it seemed to be the white people, and we had these divisions in our city. But, you know, my mother was never a divided person. We grew up all poor and Democrat, and, you know, that was, you know, our mindset at that moment in our life. And so, you know, in some ways, because I'm an urban guy, I do feel like I have some understanding of, and grew up Democrat, maybe I have some understanding of the African-American thought right here and now. But at the same time, my mother taught us. She was inspired us to treat, just like Martin Luther King Jr. said, to treat everyone equally. And so when I was a boy, we would go on vacations. You know, she worked at a nursing home, and when she worked, she had a lot of friends that, you know, would work the night shift overnight. She worked many days in a row, like 4, 5, 6 weeks in a row without a day off. And so she lived there kind of, you know, always working, trying to support 4 kids on her own as a single mother. And she had African-American workers that worked with her. And because she was around them a lot, she became friends, sincere friends. These friends of hers would come over for the holidays. They came to with us on family vacations. They were part of our family in a way. I mean, they were friends of the family, and we treated them with great respect. And I remember more than one occasion driving thousands of miles is just fine. As another example that we are very open-minded to the progress of the African American. Mia Love. Mia Love is a congresswoman. Mia Love is a congresswoman in Utah, the 4th Congressional District, she's the U.S. House of Representative. Get this, 80% white, 86% white, 1.5% African American district. All Republicans voted her in. Doesn't sound like a bunch of racists to me. Curtis Hill of Indiana. Curtis Hill won the Attorney General in 2016, African American man, had the largest total vote getting, at my understanding, in the history of Indiana. And he won as a Republican. First black man to ever be on the Supreme Court was appointed by a Republican, Ronald Reagan. So this notion of we're a bunch of racists is the idea is to scare the vote, scare people into thinking that we hate people or something. We don't hate anyone. I have not ran across anyone with hate or disgust for a person who doesn't look like them, is the concept they're always using. It's a notion that the press, who's liberal and wants to promote the Democrat Party at all costs, they lie. It's a lie. It's a huge lie. It's what I'm trying to say today. This is a lie to scare the African American vote into voting Democrat year in and year out and year in and year out. And as we've seen in places like Indianapolis or Detroit or big city Democrat areas, they're not doing anything for you. Chicago, people are getting killed left and right. The violence, the neighborhoods aren't being cared for. The Democrats run all this. They run Detroit. Now they run Indianapolis. So we keep voting for the same people, expecting to get a different, and we don't get any different results. It gets worse and worse. And now, my friends, the illegal immigrant is flooding across under the previous administration and Democrats' desires to just bring them in and foreigners from all over the country. And they just undermine the African Americans' ability to vote and also their economic potential. It undermines the neighborhoods with people who aren't even U.S. citizens. It also undermines the vote because now the Democrat Party, because they're trying to figure out different ways to win, they're letting illegals vote in our elections. They're counting illegals in our census. They're trying to. And all that does is water down the vote of the African American. So that should be disturbing if you really analyze it. But the urban decay is real. The manufacturing plants that have left urban America is real. And it's the Democrats who control these areas. So, what I'm trying to do is give you understanding that who we are and reach out to you and say, look, the Republican Party, I was raised to think they're racist, because I came from a minority religious community in the country, and they said, well, they don't like us. It was a lie. I started years ago as a Republican, and I found out that it's not true. I'm going to invite you to come to a Trump event. I'm going to invite you to come to a Republican event. See for yourself. You are welcome. I always think it's funny because the news media will say, see, there's no black people in the audience, or there's no, they all are white. Look at how they're all white. Come, join us, hang out with us, come to a Tea Party event if there's things like that going on. Come and celebrate freedom with us, because we don't care about what race you are. It's interesting when it comes to freedom. The Democrat Party keeps pushing up socialism, which is by definition incompatible with freedom. Socialism, by definition, is incompatible with freedom. Some of the worst socialists the world has ever known have been white people. That's right. Some of the worst socialists the world has ever known has been white people. Lenin, Stalin. Stalin starved 10 million, almost 10 million Ukrainians. These strong governments. I don't care what race you are. What unites us in America, what unites us in the United States of America, I don't care if you're brown, black, red, What is freedom? Our quest for freedom. That's what should be uniting us. And so we need to get beyond some of this tribalism of yesteryear or the race, relation. I'm ready. I'm ready to move on. And everybody around me is ready to embrace and have one nation under God, one nation for freedom. Indivisible, united. And I want my friends to know that this is the heart of the Trump supporter. Not what they're being told by the press who lies to you every day so that you just stay voting Democrat. Stay voting in the urban Democrat cities, their way. And what you're going to get is a continual mess. 50 years of Democrat control in Detroit, over 50 years. Almost every big city where African Americans tend to be the most, it's in shambles because of the Democrats. It's time to think differently, and that's my hope to you, is to think differently. Here's something I want to throw at you, and I'm about ready to end this video, so this isn't going to go a lot longer. And this is an interesting concept, and I hope you catch on to this. What happened in South Africa? I'm a big Bobby Kennedy supporter. I like to listen to a lot of his stuff, and he spoke in South Africa about apartheid and how bad it was, and how we needed to get beyond and look at the individual freedom. So I thought what was happening there was awful too. White people, any white people that would put, even in the United States or in South Africa, wherever it is, that would oppress another people is evil. I believe that. It is evil. Well, as the years went on, apartheid ended 20 years ago or so. It's been 25 years ago, a long time ago, early 90s, so whatever. So it's been a long time. But here's what I want you to understand, because it's not just about apartheid. I'm just trying to get you to understand the idea that now in South Africa, it's the flip, kind of like the United States. 12% of the population is African American. You got so many, 15% Hispanic, and the rest are white people. So that's kind of the way it is in the United States, and it's always mixing and changing, and that's fine. Okay. But in South Africa, 9% of the population is white. Okay, and the rest, mostly are Africans. So, the black population of Africa. So now they're taking control, and they have since apartheid has ended. But here's my point, because what's being talked about in recent news is the idea that the black people want to take the farms back. Black people want to take, South Africa, want to take the resources back. They want to take the wealth back. They want to, all that's, but they're being ruthless about it. And I think in 1930, 1950, South Carolina, Alabama, any place that was ruthless, I'm against. I'm against ruthless, evil people. I don't care what color they are. But there's people that are bad people. Whether they're white or black, we all know there's bad people. But here's my point. Here's my political point. The white people in South Africa are not allowed to have guns at all. They have no self-protection. And there's reports, and I know personally of people. Personally, I know who they are. Have been beaten, white people. They've, and maybe you could say, well, sounds similar to what was happening in 1920 America or 1840 America. Okay, but it's not right. None of it's right. White people are being beaten. They're being raped. They're being missing at night. They're being killed by the hundreds every single day in South Africa. And it's awful. But here's my point. This is a beautiful weapon. And this is a Kimber 45. Okay? It's a nice gun. Someone decides to come into my home in the United States of America, I got my gun right here ready. And no fool is going to come into my home and not have a shotgun in between their foreheads. Now, I'm not a violent guy. I'm not proposing violence. But the South African white people don't have guns. They have no protection mechanism in their home. Okay? The Democrat Party in the United States of America is trying to take our guns away. To me, if I were an African American in the United States, and knowing the history of this country, and kind of visualizing what I just said about South Africa, you flip the coin and you're the minority community. Why would you not, at all cost, defend your right to bear arms? Why would we not defend our right to have guns in our home? Because what's happening is the Democrat Party is wanting to take our guns away. It's been talked about over and over again. And if the Supreme Court goes that way to the left, they're going to come in and take our guns away. Now, here's my plea to you. The most sensitive people in this country, just like the South African white, should be the African American in the United States of America. They should be completely at wit's end to keep, and upset about the idea of guns being taken, away. Their ability to defend themselves in the middle of the night, it should be a big deal. So I'm asking you to, these NRA, National Rifle Association folks, maybe they're not so bad. Maybe we're not racist as we're being presented to be. Maybe we do love our fellow man, because I sure the heck do. And I think we all have the freedom and the human dignity and the right to bear arms, to protect our families in the middle of the night. And I don't care, what race you are. There's bad people of all races. And we should have the right. I want to end this here, but I wanted to say hi. And I wanted to again invite you to a Trump event. You are welcome, my friend. You are welcome. And we may not have the same approach, dialect and people in the way we handle ourselves, but we're humans and we love freedom. And any man who's for freedom or woman is my friend. And as we listen to Martin Luther King Jr., he talks about freedom over and over again.
With its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right now in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. Exalted. And every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. This is our hope. This is a faith that I go back to the South with.
God bless you all.
With this